The hidden code inside your thoughts. What if I told you that every thought you've ever had contains a secret code that determines whether it empowers or destroys you? Most people think thoughts are just random mental chatter, meaningless noise between their ears. They're completely wrong. Cognitive scientists have uncovered something extraordinary. Your thoughts aren't just words in your head. They're complex data structures with hidden architectures that dictate your emotions, decisions, and entire reality. The Stoic philosophers knew this 2,000 years ago. They called it examining your impressions. Neuroscience calls it metacognition. Both are describing the same mental decoding process. This isn't positive psychology nonsense. This is hard science. Your thoughts follow specific linguistic and structural patterns that can be identified, decoded, and rewritten. Researchers have mapped the exact thought signatures that create anxiety, depression, and self-sabotage. More importantly, they've identified the thought codes that generate confidence, clarity, and achievement. There's a hidden language operating beneath your conscious awareness. Today, I'm going to expose the 10 hidden codes inside your thoughts and show you exactly how to crack them. These aren't abstract concepts. They're precise mental algorithms you can hack right now to change everything about how you experience reality. Part 1. The distortion detection algorithm. You think your thoughts accurately represent reality. They don't. Every single thought you have passes through cognitive filters that warp, exaggerate, and distort information. Psychologists have identified 15 common distortion patterns that most people run unconsciously every single day. These distortions operate like malware in your mental software, corrupting your perception without you ever noticing. Here's what research shows. Your brain prioritizes speed over accuracy when generating thoughts. It uses mental shortcuts that sacrifice truth for efficiency. The result? Most of your thoughts about yourself, others, and your circumstances are systematically distorted. This is technique number 1 out of 10, the distortion detection algorithm. For the next 3 days, write down 5 negative thoughts each day exactly as they occur. Then identify which cognitive distortion each one represents: all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, mental filtering, or catastrophizing. Simply naming the distortion breaks its power over you. Your conscious mind recognizes the thought as a processing error rather than truth. The thought loses its emotional charge instantly because you've exposed its faulty code. Detect these distortions systematically and observe your mental clarity improve within 72 hours. Part 2. The language precision protocol. The specific words you use in your internal dialogue aren't just descriptions. They're commands that your nervous system executes automatically. Most people use catastrophically imprecise language that triggers massive emotional reactions. They say, "I'm terrified," when they mean, "I'm slightly uncomfortable." They say, "I always fail," when they mean, "I struggled this one time." This linguistic imprecision creates psychological chaos. Brain imaging studies reveal that your amygdala responds to the intensity of your word choice, not the reality of your situation. When you use extreme language, your body generates extreme stress responses. Your physiology believes whatever vocabulary you choose. This is technique number 2 out of 10, the language precision protocol. Examine every emotionally charged thought and replace extreme words with accurate ones. Change "I'm devastated" to "I'm disappointed." Change "this is impossible" to "this is challenging right now." Change "I can't handle this" to "I'm uncomfortable with this." Speak to yourself with the precision of a scientist describing an experiment. Your nervous system immediately downregulates its stress response when your language matches reality. The emotional intensity you've been carrying dissolves because you've corrected the code. Apply this protocol to 10 thoughts today and witness your emotional stability transform instantly. Part 3. The temporal displacement. Decoder. Your thoughts exist in 3 time frames: past, present, and future. Most people don't realize they spend 90% of their mental energy in the wrong time frame. They ruminate about past events that can't be changed or worry about future scenarios that haven't happened. Meanwhile, the present moment, the only time frame where you have actual power, gets ignored completely. Neuroscientists have discovered something crucial. Your brain can only process genuine reality in present tense. Past and future thinking activates your imagination centers, not your problem-solving centers. You're essentially running simulations instead of living your actual life. This is technique number 3 out of 10, the the temporal displacement decoder. Catch yourself whenever your thoughts drift to past or future, then ask, what needs my attention in this exact moment? Redirect your focus to present tense reality, what you can see, hear, touch, or do right now. Practice this redirect 15 times throughout one day. Your brain retrains itself to allocate mental resources to the only time frame that matters. Anxiety decreases dramatically because anxiety is always about imagined futures. Depression lessens because depression is always about ruminated pasts. Decode your temporal displacement and notice your mental energy become available for actual living. Part 4. The Assumption Extraction System. Every thought you have rests on a foundation of hidden assumptions. You never examine these assumptions because they operate beneath conscious awareness, but they control everything. When you think, they don't like me, you're assuming you can read minds. When you think, I'll never succeed, you're assuming the future is predetermined. These hidden assumptions are the source code of your thought patterns. Cognitive psychologists have proven that most psychological suffering comes from unexamined assumptions, not from actual circumstances. Your assumptions create your interpretation, and your interpretation becomes your experience. This is technique number 4 out of 10, the assumption extraction system. Take any distressing thought and ask, what would I have to believe for this thought to be true? Write down every assumption you uncover. Then ask, is this assumption based on evidence or imagination? Most assumptions collapse immediately under this examination. Your thought loses its grip because you've exposed its baseless foundation. Extract the assumptions from 5 thoughts this week and watch entire belief systems crumble. Implement this system consistently and eliminate 70% of unnecessary mental suffering. Part 5. The narrative structure. Hack your thoughts aren't isolated units. They form stories. You're constantly narrating your life to yourself, creating meaning from events. But here's what most people miss. You're the author of these narratives, not a passive observer. The story you tell yourself about your life determines your identity, emotions, and choices. Yet most people never take authorial control. Research in narrative psychology shows that people who rewrite their personal narratives experience measurable improvements in mental health, confidence, and achievement. Your life story isn't fixed. It's infinitely revisable. This is technique number 5 out of 10, the narrative structure hack. Identify one recurring negative story you tell yourself. I always get overlooked. I'm not talented enough. Or, things never work out for me. Now deliberately rewrite this narrative with new evidence that contradicts it. Find 5 examples where the opposite was true. Rehearse this new narrative daily for 10 days until it feels more natural than the old one. Your brain accepts the most frequently rehearsed story as truth, regardless of which version you started with. You're not denying reality. You're choosing which reality to amplify. Hack your narrative structure and observe your entire self-concept shift within 2 weeks. Part 6. The Question Architecture Method. The structure of your questions determines the structure of your reality. Most people ask closed questions that dead-end their thinking. Can I do this? Produces only yes/no answers. Why am I like this? Produces only justifications. These question structures trap you in limited response patterns. Cognitive scientists have identified question architectures that open possibilities instead of closing them. Your brain is designed to answer questions. It cannot not answer a question you pose internally. This means question structure is a form of mental programming. You control what your brain searches for and finds. This is technique number 6 out of 10, the question architecture method. Restructure every limiting question into an expansive format. Replace, can I? With, how might I? Replace, why did this happen? With, what can I learn from this? Replace, what's wrong with me? With, what's one thing I can improve? Use question words that presuppose solutions. How, what, which. Your mind immediately shifts from problem fixation to solution generation. The quality of answers you receive skyrockets because you've upgraded the question architecture. Restructure 8 questions this week using this method. Master this approach and transform your mind into a solution-finding machine. Part 7. The Evidence Calibration Technique. Your thoughts make constant claims about reality. Nobody respects me. I'm behind in life. I always mess things up. These claims feel true because your brain cherry-picks evidence that confirms them while ignoring contradictory data. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, your mind's tendency to see only what it expects to see. This creates a distorted evidence base that makes false thoughts feel accurate. Studies show that people maintain false beliefs not because of lack of information, but because of selective attention to information. Your thoughts remain unchallenged because you've never audited their evidence. This is technique number 7 out of 10, the evidence calibration technique. Take any negative thought claim and demand proof like a skeptical scientist. Write down all evidence supporting the thought, then actively search for evidence contradicting it. Force yourself to find at least 3 counterexamples. Rate the quality of evidence on both sides objectively. Your thought loses its certainty when you realize it's based on selective data interpretation. The emotional impact diminishes because you've revealed the thought's evidential weakness. Calibrate the evidence for 4 major negative thoughts this month. Practice this technique rigorously and develop immunity to false thought claims. Part 8. The Perspective Rotation Framework. You experience every situation from one fixed perspective, your own. This single viewpoint consciousness creates blind spots, distortions, and unnecessary suffering. But your brain has the capacity to mentally rotate perspectives and see situations from multiple angles. Cognitive researchers have validated that perspective taking reduces emotional reactivity and increases problem-solving capability. You're not stuck in your point of view. When you rotate perspectives, different aspects of reality become visible. What seemed threatening from one angle becomes neutral from another. What seemed personal from your view becomes impersonal from someone else's. This is technique number 8 out of 10, the Perspective Rotation Framework. When you have a distressing thought about someone's behavior, spend 2 minutes imagining the situation from their perspective. What pressures might they be under? What might their intentions actually be? What story might they be telling themselves? Then view the situation from a third-person observer perspective. Your emotional charge decreases immediately because you've broken the single perspective trap. You gain access to information your original viewpoint couldn't see. Rotate perspectives on 6 interpersonal thoughts this week. Integrate this framework permanently and eliminate most relationship-based mental suffering. Part 9. The Completion Loop Closure. Your mind generates thousands of incomplete thought loops daily. You start thinking about a problem but never reach a conclusion. You replay conversations but never extract the lesson. These incomplete loops continue running in the background of your consciousness, consuming mental resources and creating persistent unease. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, your brain's compulsion to finish what it started. Research demonstrates that incomplete mental tasks create measurable cognitive load and stress. Your thoughts remain intrusive because they're searching for resolution. This is technique number 9 out of 10, the completion loop closure. Set aside 15 minutes each evening to deliberately complete unfinished thought loops. Take each recurring thought and either make a decision, extract a lesson, or consciously choose to release it. Write down your completion statement. I've decided to, or the lesson is, or I'm releasing this because. Your brain accepts these closure statements and stops running the loop. Mental space opens up immediately because you've terminated background processes. Close 5 thought loops tonight using this technique. Maintain this practice nightly and experience profound mental clarity within 1 week. Part 10. The Meta-Awareness Amplifier. Most people are completely identified with their thoughts. They believe they are their thoughts rather than the awareness observing thoughts. This identification gives thoughts enormous power over your emotional state. But neuroscientists have discovered that you can develop meta-awareness, the ability to observe your thoughts from a detached position. This creates psychological distance that transforms your relationship with thinking itself. Brain imaging studies show that meta-awareness activates different neural networks than ordinary thinking. You're literally using a different part of your brain when you observe thoughts versus when you believe thoughts. This is technique number 10 out of 10, the meta-awareness amplifier. Throughout your day, practice labeling your thoughts in third person. There's a worried thought. There's a self-critical thought. There's an anxious thought. Use the word theirs to create distance. Practice this labeling 20 times today. Your brain recognizes that if you can observe a thought, you cannot be that thought. The identification breaks, and thoughts become mental events you witness rather than truths you embody. You gain freedom from your thinking patterns because you've stepped into the observer position. Amplify your meta-awareness consistently and access a level of mental freedom most people never experience. The hidden code inside your thoughts isn't random. It's a structured system that can be learned, decoded, and mastered. These 10 techniques aren't just mental exercises. They're the exact algorithms that separate psychological suffering from psychological freedom. The mystics have always taught that thoughts create reality. Cognitive science has simply revealed the precise mechanisms. Both traditions point to the same liberation. You are not at the mercy of your thoughts. You have the power to decode them, rewrite them, and choose which ones to amplify. The mental prison you've been living in doesn't have locks. It has a code, and now you know how to crack it. Your transformation doesn't start tomorrow or next week. It starts the moment you decode your next thought. Your liberated mind is waiting.